Hello, I'm Tommy Moore from the Bartitsu lab, and in this video we're going to be looking at some ancillary techniques or supporting techniques from World War II combatives or the kind of fighting systems of the 1930s to the 1950s. I'm going to fly through some of these supporting techniques that don't necessarily have a home in some of the other videos that I do, but are useful or you might find interesting to explore. So without further ado, the first one we're going to be looking at is the thumb jab. Now the thumb jab is very endemic to what is known as combat judo or American combat judo. In essence, it's using the tip of the thumb, not the pad of the thumb, so the tip of the thumb as a striking surface or as a pain or damage inducing surface, much like you'd see in other atemiwaza such as an ippon-ken, so using a smaller striking surface. Now, a lot of the things that you see with this are using the thumb akin to the ippon-ken, so using it into the eye, into the throat, into the liver, spleen, kidneys and what have you. I personally have very little success with this. I find that what can be achieved with this can also be more readily achieved with a fist or with an edge of hand blow. There's not much utility I find for this as a striking tool. Where I do find utility for it as a piece of pain and damage causing kazushi. So some strikes are strikes, and for me, some strikes are keys that unlock better things. This is an example of a key for me. So where you might see these used in a more percussive instance, boom, boom, I find that especially through thick clothing, with, you can only assume poor targeting because you're scared and disorientated, it's going to be very hard to pull off. And if you do pull it off, is it a man stopper? No. Would you use this on the lunatic at the door? Probably not. But ways in which you could use it, or might want to use it for me, are when you end up in this fucked up tangle. When you end up in this grapple, where you're mauling, snarling, biting, gouging. One, I would secure the head, like so. Secure the head in the crook of the elbow, ballistically, like so. At that juncture, I can drop my head to make sure he doesn't get my eyes, and use this thumb jab, almost like a screwdriver, into his eye. Here. Now, the importance for this is that I stop him moving backwards. If I go for someone's eyes, they will push and pull for all hell to get away. So I need something behind him to make sure that I can pull and push and drive, importantly drive, not just poke, but drive into his eye. By doing so, I can manipulate the rest of his body into walls, down flights of stairs. It can get me closer to the weapons that I might need. So there's lots of things that can be done and unlocked by using the thumb jab. I don't particularly like it as a long range or mid-range percussion piece, but I do like it to the eyes as a driving technique. So something to think about. Others do recommend it in a percussive sense. I don't really like it, but you will find once you're in that close-up grapple, using the tip of the thumb, the harder tip of the thumb, behind the ear, into the eye, with that grind will be very successful for you. But I can't stress enough, it's a lot more effective if you grab the back of his head, his jacket, if you've got a bit of his belt, if you've got some means to attach him to you, or a wall to compress him against, using that thumb jab is a lot more effective. Next thing we're going to look at is the rock crusher. Now the rock crusher is essentially driving the fingers into the throat, so into the trachea here. They compress and you hit with the hard bottom part of your palm into the sternum. Like so. Like so. You'll notice that the body mechanic is not too dissimilar. If I was throwing across, bang. The exact same gig. You're still using your hip, you're still using your foot, you're still using your shoulder. But in this instance, the drill bit, if I'm the drill, this is the drill bit. The drill bit going in is this rock crusher fingers that compress into a palm. There is some small danger for your fingers here, but it's a relatively safe technique overall. What I do like about it is you do get that initial choking reaction from the jab into the throat. You also get this hit into the sternum, but it's quite a good knockdown technique. Not everything needs to be a knockout technique. Not everything needs to be a full-on, take them out of the game, smash. I might just want to shunt him very hard in the chest so he falls over so I can escape, get my gun, get my phone, get out the door. So the rock crusher is very good for, it's more disabling than a push because you got the push plus the initial strike to the throat. Is it going to put someone down for good or put them down for a long time? No. But will it put them down for enough time? That's potential. That's something you can work with. But in essence, from either hand, fingers compressing into a hard shunt into the chest. Remember, it's a strike and not a push. Like so. The push is the effect, not the cause. So if I wanted to push him, I'd probably push him. In this instance, I'm striking, turning the hips, getting the fingers into the throat, and ideally that makes him gag and choke and also fall down. Like so. That's the rock crusher, a useful tool. Next we're going to move into the jugular notch slap. Now you've seen in other videos I've talked about things like a face smash from here, throwing a ball. It's the exact same notion, but we're hitting the jugular notch, that little dip here in your throat, with the two middle fingers. Kelly McCann is a big kind of exponent or proponent of this. You're throwing that same overhand ball motion, these fingers digging into that jugular notch. Essentially it's like you're throwing a fast ball from here. If you get a bit closer, the technique starts to resemble more of a chin jab, in that it just strikes straight up. And I'd advise with this, if you can, secure his right hand as you do it, because this is the hand that's likely to be punching, striking, drawing a knife, drawing a bat, drawing a gun. So get used to the notion of firing this jugular notch strike while securing a hand from here. That might be pinning his hand on his belt, it might be getting an underhook on this hand, or just compressing it with my body, but either way I want to dominate the dangerous side. Dominate that dangerous side. And bear in mind to experiment with ranges. From very far away, it comes more like an overhand throw. Mid-range, like a cross. Up close, like a chin jab. Either way, the jugular notch is a nice, nasty place to hit. Again, is it as much of a man stopper as a chin jab, edge of hand blow, as a decent punch? No, it's not, but it does provide other alternative options. So again, something to play with. And finally, the cradle blow, or the yoke of hand blow. Essentially, that's using this notch here and smashing it into the throat. I don't like this as a strike. You see a lot of people use it as a strike. I don't find it delivers enough force when compared to a decent edge of hand blow. So I much prefer a tool like this than a tool like that. But the benefits it does have is that it allows you to ballistically seize the throat. Okay? So whilst that as a standalone strike, I don't find very useful unless you're much bigger and much stronger, in which case I could have just chinned you anyway. But what it does allow me to do is, once that's in, to seize, to really grip and crush that trachea, and use that to manipulate the opponent into walls, into doorways, downstairs, or indeed, let's imagine that you've come downstairs into your kitchen and there's a home invader. As soon as you've got this on, you can start to move yourself closer to where your knives might be in your kitchen, or to where your gun cabinet might be. It's a good piece of kazushi manipulation because you're causing the pain, the disorientation, the damage with the strangle. It's quite hard to put someone out fully with this. It's more about causing pain and choking and tears, so allowing you to manipulate him where you want him to be, to do something more lasting and final. More lasting and final. More lasting and final. Understand? But in essence, treat that as a ballistic seizure as opposed to a strike. I prefer anyway. From here. Because if you treat it just as a strike and not a ballistic seizure, often you'll find that it can be quite damaging to the thumb. The neck is relatively strong. It's a strong bit of kit. It moves your heavy head around all day. So necks are naturally quite strong. The strike alone often doesn't cut the mustard. The strike and seize is important, but once you've got that seizure, remember to crush and also move, push, pull, rag, drag him to another place. Don't just stand there and hope to get a choke on him. Move him and manipulate him. Fulfilling the choke from the front is hard to do. What does make it easier if you want to is him lying flat on the floor, him against a wall, or you applying something like this as you apply that choke. But either way, it's an air choke as opposed to a blood choke. It takes longer. It's better off causing just nasty damage and a point from which you can manipulate him into another place to draw or do something better. So I see the cradle blow or the yokan blow as a ballistic seizure, which should be rapidly followed by a crushing motion and moving yourself and the opponent. So a couple of odds and sods to play with. The thumb jab, using the tip, not the pad, in a screwdriver motion, my recommendation. The rock crusher, fingers into the throat, followed by a hard palm into the sternum at different ranges. The jugular notch slap, slamming in these two middle fingers right into that latch, and also the cradle blow or the yokan blow, a ballistic seizure of the throat. All things to play away with. For me, ancillary tools, support tools, but again, where there's an opportunity, by all means use them. Something to play with.